Hello, welcome to the Geekly. My name is Jules.
I'm Leks.
Let's talk about the big bit of news this week. There is going to be a Siren spin-off from the Arrowverse. We're not sure if it's happening in 2040. We're not sure if it's happening in present day. I'm kind of hoping Crisis brings it to present day. As much as I'd like to see maybe some future tech and stuff, the 2040 side of that story really bored me. I didn't really find any of them particularly engaging. So I'm hoping it's somehow brought into the present day.
Yeah, I kind of feel the opposite. Like, I don't want them to be brought in the present day. I feel like we've done that already. And granted, okay, Arrow's ending, so we won't have, Oliver and Felicity and Mia having little family dramas like the Flash family. But we've talked about how much time travel and shit has been in the Arrowverse so far. I don't want any more of that. I'm fine with, Crisis on Infinite Earths, bringing all of the various Earths together, but I don't want them to mess with timelines. I agree with you, like, the 2040 storyline in Arrow Season 7 was the weakest part of it, but I think the biggest reason that was because they were trying to tell two completely independent storylines together, and there wasn't enough space for either of them to really branch out. Like, the concepts in the 2040 storyline are really great. Like, the whole idea of the network of canaries, this hunting of vigilantes. There's a lot of interesting things they can do there, so I'm kind of excited to see what happens when they aren't trying to, like, tie it into what's happening with present day Oliver Queen.
Yeah, I think it was all shot with like a grey lens filter as well.
Yeah.
When you think about...
When we get to Titans, I'm going to mention filters.
Where's Nora from 2043 or something?
Within a few years of the 2040 storyline.
Yeah, Central City is shot with like this, it's like radiant. It's like we're in heaven. Future Star City, such a grubby little hole of a place.
It's kind of very Gotham-y.
I'm unenthused, but I'll give it a go. Still banking on them. Mia appearing in Crisis on Infinite Earths, maybe somehow winding up being stuck here. That would be my preference, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Let's just be Nora all over again.
The fact that Mia's not Nora, I mean, it's somebody travelling from the 2040s back to present day. Yes, I will grant you that, but she's not Nora. Nora is just out on her own in the kind of special zone that I keep for people like Mr. Terrific. But Mia's got something about her, I think.
So should we just crack on with our reviews this week?
Let's crack on. Would you like to start with Titans or American Horror Story? Because I want to leave Preacher for last, where it deserves to be.
Let's do Titans first, since I mentioned it. I'm really sick of the blue filter. I was just watching it, and everything looks great. I mean, you think about Robin's costume, it's very, very colorful. But in this filter, it all looks like it's one color. Like, he just looks like he's dressed in black. It's like, come on, people.
He looks like he's wearing kind of just some Kevlar. Some random Kevlar.
Yeah, he doesn't really look like Robin. I'm really enjoying the Jason Todd stuff. It's just this one aspect of it. I'm tired of the blue filter. Yeah. I don't know. It seems to be a thing that TV shows do when they want to appear more serious. They're like, let's just slap a filter on it and make it look dark and grungy. And
because you've got Doom Patrol, which is also shot with lens filters, but it's a much more kind of, we're in heaven. Or
Doom Patrol is really bright and vibrant, and Titans is just even during the day it looks like it's nighttime.
Yeah, similarly Swamp Thing was kind of a grey or a darker lens filter as well.
I thought it worked with Swamp Thing because you're in the swamp and it's dark and it kind of...
Even when it was day, you wanted it to be night, and that helped with it.
It sort of echoed the atmosphere. But Titans, I think, if they just used the dark filter a little bit less, maybe restricted it to nighttime, it would be a lot better.
I would say that Jason Todd has kind of surpassed Dick Grayson as my favourite character on the show now. I like the energy, a bit of a rebellion, and I really liked how that played out in the end of the whole episode. The things that are succeeding for me in this show so far, everything to do with Slade Wilson. And he's kind of brought in Dr. Light. They're kind of a package deal now. And Jason's energy and his rebellion. Everything else I'm kind of a little bit blur about.
I would agree with you. I think the Deathstroke stuff is good. I'm glad they tied Dr. Light and Deathstroke together, although I think they should have done it last episode rather than waiting to this episode, because initially when they introduced Dr. Light, it felt very disconnected from what was actually going on. It felt like we were kind of going in two diverging directions with two different enemies, and now to find out that they're working together, maybe they wanted it to be kind of like a big reveal, but it didn't come off like a big reveal. It just came off like, oh, by the way, we forgot to tell you that these guys are actually working together. There's weird stuff happening with Rachel, which I feel like we did a lot of last season, and I don't particularly want to revisit it. Like, I would like to see her develop some ownership of her abilities and kind of come into her power instead of being this scared little girl who's...
Yeah, I mean, in last season it was like Dick and Starfire were the mum and dad of the group.
Yeah.
Gar and Rachel were kind of the kids. And so Rachel, again, you think after killing her own father, maybe she would have grown up. I think I'd agree with you. I'd like her to be a bit more, maybe not scared of her powers, but embracing her powers.
I think the kind of conflict between Hank and Dawn could be really interesting if they explored it more, but they're dealing with it very, very superficially in the fact that they kind of want to have the best of both worlds, which they can if they just become trainers for the younger Titans, which I think should just happen instead of all of this angst of, oh, I want to be a superhero, but you can't be a superhero without using, and we have to go back to our farm in the middle of nowhere, and you know, Dawn's saying this, meanwhile she's the one who's sneaking out at night to do vigilante stuff. Nothing that goes on that's happening in that storyline really feels genuine. There's too much introspective drama happening at the moment. I want to get back to a more action-based thing, and I think that's why the Slade Wilson, Dr. Light storyline and Jason Todd, because Jason Todd is very active. He's not a very introspective character. He kind of reacts to things and obviously does not think things through very well.
Do you think that's a problem with the DC universe in general? Because we often talked about, to its benefit, like Doom Patrol was like a character study quite often. They weren't going out beating people up. And then we had Swamp Thing, and it was the other way around, where we were like, oh, they're just talking. We've seen all this. They're literally explaining the same things over and over again. I want Swamp Thing to go out and like kick some ass. Do you think this is possibly a DCU problem? I'm presuming people might be involved in kind of all three shows.
I would say out of the two major publishing houses, DC is probably the more cerebral of the two, which is not to say that Marvel is stupid or not intellectual or anything like that. I think there are a lot of complex storylines and characters in the Marvel universe, but DC does have this tendency to look inward on characters more than just having action-driven sequences. And sometimes, as in, like, you know, like in Doom Patrol, it kind of worked for the most part. Other times, like in Swamp Thing and now in Titans, it just feels a bit redundant and boring, and we kind of want them to get on with the action. Yeah, I would say it's probably a DC problem.
Yeah, I mean, we've got such an arsenal of talent in Titans Tower. We know Superboy is coming at some point, and Crypto the Dog. We know, I think, Aqualad's coming.
I know, and I want to know where the fuck Crypto is. Like, he was there in the trailer, and we have yet to see anything about him. Like, I want Crypto, damn it.
Yeah, and we're going to have such a glut of amazing people. I'm kind of Jason Todd, I guess. Like, I'm in this house, I'm just desperate to get out and actually start, you know, kicking ass and taking names. And I love the bit where he went out with Gar, and I love the bit where he was fighting Dr. Light, and suddenly, even though you just had this confrontation with Dick, he was able to channel some of Dick's teaching, you know. In battle, anything can be taken from you. And he managed to start fighting Dr. Light. But yeah, we've got a lot of talent. Let's have them doing stuff, you know?
Yeah. And I think especially because we're seeing a lot of these characters for the first time, we kind of, like, we want to see what they can do. I mean, obviously, you know, we're familiar with them from the comics and everything, but as we've mentioned before, when they do a TV adaptation of a comic book, you're kind of starting from the ground and building up, and how they deal with the mythology is sort of up for grabs. And I want to see exactly what this Donna can do. I want to see Rachel come into her own with her powers, and I really don't want her to go down the Dark Phoenix storyline, because it's been done. I don't think it can be done any better than the Dark Phoenix storyline. It's
unfortunate because season 1 she was Destroyer of Worlds, which Daisy Johnson did, and now you're right, the Dark Phoenix story looks like it's potentially going to happen with her, and that would be frustrating to have 2 for 2. She did so well, you know, against her father. Let's just let her own that.
Yeah, and she even said, you know, something changed when she did that, and she felt like, you know, she'd become a different person, but she's not a different character than she was in season 1. She's kind of regressed back to the scared girl whose mother was just killed and has, like, run into Dick Grayson's arms, except now she's running to Starfire. It's no small feat. Like, her father was, like, a massive demon, like, super powerful guy. Like, she didn't just shoot him in the head and that was the end of it. Like, she went up against an incredible force and succeeded, and we don't really see any of that, the after effects of that.
So yeah, I mean, generally positive.
Generally positive, yeah. I'm interested to see where it goes. I have a few little annoyances. A couple of the storylines aren't really grabbing me, but I really like the Slade Wilson stuff. Really like the Jason Todd stuff. I'm interested in Rose. She seems like an interesting character. I want to see which side she ends up on and what she ends up doing.
Yeah, I think when Slade said, we put them in crisis, we see how they operate, who commands, who follows, we cull the herd, isolate the weak, the rest come to us. That was probably the best line of the whole thing. You know, we're 3 episodes in, and I feel like we're finally going to get these people tested sooner rather than later. Jason's obviously been abducted now, so we're going to see how they react to that. I'm feeling positive.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think it's headed in a good direction. I'm not sure how I feel about American Horror Story.
Quick fire round for you, okay?
Okay.
Is this the worst intro music / video of all the series?
I kind of like it.
God. I could not hate it more. Please tell me why you like it.
I don't know. It's just it's so 80s, and I think that's kind of how the show is going to go, just based on the first episode, because the first episode is very 80s. Like, it's almost cliched 80s.
It feels to me as if they've said, do you know what's doing really well right now? Stranger Things. Like, they're trying to get in on some of that nostalgia viewership. I remember when the first time I ever saw American Horror Story, I think it was with you.
Yeah, it was.
I remember seeing, and we were watching Murder House, and I remember the intro music and kind of montage around it being scary. Like, I remember thinking, Jesus, this is like the intro. Like, fucking, you know, horror isn't really my genre. This is scary enough. Like, God, what's the show going to be like?
See, I've never found the opening credits scary, but I watch a lot of horror.
Yeah.
That's like my area of expertise.
Oh, I didn't get through the credits. Like, oh, God, turn it off. I can't watch anymore. But, like, I was like, oh, shit, okay. Like, here we are. This feels, like, ominous and, you know. I thought this was going to be a quick fire round. It hasn't turned out that way.
No, it hasn't. I think the intro very much sets up the tone of what the show is going to be. So, like, if you watch the intro, you know what kind of aesthetic you're going to get. And I wish they'd tone down the nostalgia a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it feels like a performance of the 80s rather than something that's actually set in the 80s. Like, you think about Stranger Things, they use a lot of nostalgia and stuff, but at the same time, it feels very natural and very just that it's set there. Like, they aren't trying to replicate something. Yeah. And I think, that bugged me about this episode.
I think when I watched the opening trailer, I can't believe we're still talking about it. When I watched the opening credits, I kind of think it's like a show aimed at, like, teenagers. It's like light horror. Obviously, when we get into the story, it becomes more horrific, but yeah, that was not for me.
It's kind of an homage to the 80s slasher films, which were basically geared at teenagers. So it's kind of fulfilling the brief there.
I guess so. I think it's probably a me thing rather than a show thing. Next question, quick fire round. It's really unfair to do this, but think about the cast of Murder House, think about the cast of Asylum, and then think about this cast.
That was actually one of the things that I was going to talk about when we go into the show.
Is this the worst cast ever assembled for a season of American Horror Story? Yeah, it's not even close, is it?
There are a couple of familiar faces, but they're not my favorite familiar faces.
Same, exactly the same.
There are a lot of familiar faces that I really miss, and I think part of the charm of American Horror Story is having the same cast over and over and over again and seeing them do different roles in different parts and in different contexts, and to kind of basically be given a completely new cast with the exception of 3-4 people, because we've got Cody Fern,
Leslie Grossman, I can't remember the main,
Billy Lords, and I can't remember the
one from Coven. She's in those 4, I think. Oh, and the guy that plays Mr. Jingles.
Oh yeah, he's back.
But I know exactly what you mean. Like, none of these are particularly my favourite kind of characters. I mean, to see Zachary Quinto in this would have been great. To see, a lot of other people would have been great. But I was a little bit disappointed there weren't more recognisable faces. Just
kind of looking back at the American Horror Story seasons, the ones that have really changed the cast up the most have been my least favourite.
Roanoke?
That was the one that I was specifically thinking of. And it's not that the actors they use are bad or anything like that, but it does sort of go against the premise of what American Horror Story is supposed to be. I mean, that was the initial idea. We have a set cast, and every year we have a different story using the same cast. And it was really innovative. It was really interesting.
I was going to say Zachary Quinto and I think David O'Hare. The name escapes me at the moment, but Liz Taylor from Hotel. Like,
every role that he's had in American Horror Story has been kind of like a scene stealer.
So great.
And the guy who plays Tate, I can't remember his name.
Evan Peters.
Yeah. I really like him as well, and I would have liked to see him in this one. So much for like the quick fire session.
So we've got Xavier, Montana, Ray, Chet, and Brooke. I've written down next to Ray and Chet, want them to die.
Yeah.
Nothing good about them whatsoever. The actors are bad. The characters are very one-dimensional. Bring nothing to it whatsoever. But the thing about Xavier is he had a call saying, you can't just take your dick and leave.
Well, Xavier is obviously gay, despite all the fact that like he talks about sleeping with women and stuff. So like it's gonna be his secret that's gonna come out, that he's actually secretly gay, and that's kind of. I mean, I know it's probably a thing in the 80s. It was a thing in the 80s, but we're not in the 80s. Like, it's 2019. We don't need a story about some guy hiding his sexuality because he's afraid of being outed. That story has been done.
Brooke is obviously being bothered by the Night Stalker. And for Montana, I'm assuming there'll be a jealous wife coming along. So 3 of the 5 cast have kind of potential serial killers coming to get them for individual reasons. On top of that, we've got Mr. Jingles. Why do we know the identity of Mr. Jingles in Series 1? And is it because they're going to do a switcheroo and one of these other potential killers are going to be the actual killer? Or is Margaret going to go psycho? Because I think
she's going to go psycho.
I think she's definitely going to go psycho.
And like I haven't read the articles, but there are loads of articles about like fans thinking they know who the serial killer is going to be in episode 1, and I'm betting that it's safe to say that pretty much everybody is like Margaret's going to go. Yeah. She's going to lose it.
Yeah.
She's just way too tightly wound, and she's got the whole connection, and there's no other reason for them to tell us about Mr. Jingles so early on.
Yeah. I'm praying that there is actually a switcheroo and somebody else comes in, because if Mr. Jingles, if he's the guy for the whole series, then fuck it. I mean, what's the point? What's the point of us even watching? The police know that person has escaped. They know that he's going to Camp Redwood. He cannot be on the run for 10 episodes, considering the size of Camp Redwood. After watching 1 episode, I'm very concerned. So that's why I'm saying I'm praying for there to be like a switcheroo. I'm also curious if they're going to do a Roanoke where after 5 episodes, they completely switch the premise. And then maybe after another 2 episodes, they completely switch the premise again. Because
like Apocalypse.
Yeah, because this isn't sustainable, considering we know who he is. The police know who he is. They know where he's going. They're going to be there in episode 2.
I was hoping for a supernatural killer. Just thinking about like Jason and Freddy Krueger and Mike Myers and all of those great 80s murderers. The kind of unifying thing was that there was something supernatural about them. They weren't exactly human. And I feel like, a show like American Horror Story should indulge in that. If you're going to do horror, why not go all the way? The defining element of horror is the supernatural and the fact that the enemy can't actually be beaten. Even when it seems like he's been beaten, at the very last scene, the hand comes out of the rubble kind of thing. So if we stick to a purely human, non-supernatural serial killer for this entire season, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Which seasons have done supernatural killers?
Murder House, Roanoke. You had a little bit of it in Asylum because there was the possessed nun.
In Hotel, were there ghosts in Hotel?
Yeah, there were ghosts in the main guy, Evan Peters' character.
James Patrick March, I think.
Yeah, James Patrick March. He was a ghost. There were vampires. Everybody in Hotel was kind of supernatural. Apocalypse, you had the Antichrist.
So, they know how to do it.
Yeah, so, I would say more often than not, they've done supernatural killers than real ones. It's like as far as human killers have gone, we had the cult one, which didn't have anything supernatural in it, and we had Bloody Face. But all of the other sort of murderers have been ghosts or some other supernatural creature. So I want to go back to that.
Fingers crossed they do a kind of last minute switcheroo or something, and we get Mr. Jingles back in prison in like episode 2, and then something else happens.
Or they kill him very quickly and he comes back to life. Like I would be down for that.
I would be very down for that. Do you think that Margaret was helping him? Because, she lost the ear. She said she was able to lie there without making any sound. Do you think that's how she survived? And that they may be working together and that could be a twist?
I don't think so, because they've found the newspaper articles in his room with like her picture circled and like the article about her reopening the camp, and it seems like he's going back to finish the job.
I can't get away from the cast, to be honest. That's my main issue, and it's difficult to engage with this story when you're just looking at people thinking, you know, Ray, Chet, like, what are you doing? I think the guy that plays Chet apparently he's actually an Olympian. He's like Winter Olympic skier or something, I think.
He should stick to skiing.
There are so many people that could play this role.
Yeah.
I don't get the appeal of we bring in a quote unquote celebrity or like a musician to do this role. Wasn't one of Maroon 5 in...
the singer was in Asylum.
He
got murdered by Bloody Face.
Yeah. I just like actors playing, being in TV and film. Is it too much to ask? And you know what helps? If an American plays an American and an English person plays an English person as well. Looking at you, Bruce Wayne. But yeah, enjoyable enough, but my expectations have plummeted for the rest of the season. Which is probably a good thing because they can only maybe go up.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very neutral about it at the moment. I'm not for or against. I'm kind of waiting to see what they do with it.
Yeah.
I know where I want it to go, but I'm not convinced they're going to go in that direction. Even if they don't go in that direction, I mean, it could still be good. It could still be interesting. We'll see what happens. But it didn't wow me or be like, yeah, this season's going to be amazing.
We absolutely have to have more than one serial killer or some kind of big twist. Probably after like episode 2 or 3, because what we've been given won't sustain 10 episodes, and so I'm concerned that they're going to try and make it sustain 10 episodes, and that will be another problem on top of this. Really hoping maybe some new characters join. That's it. That's all I have to say.
So we're kind of ambivalent about American Horror Story at the moment.
Yeah.
That seems to be the verdict. It has potential, but we aren't convinced that they will live up to it.
I still don't think it can be worse than Apocalypse.
I don't think anything can be worse than Apocalypse.
No, I don't. So I'm happy to commit to watching all 10 of these, but something's got to change. I mean, remember, first episode of Murder House, first episode of Asylum, first episode of Freak Show, the kind of things you really get grabbed. This was just a bunch of teens sitting around and
well, like you, as I was watching, I was thinking, how are they going to sustain this for 10 episodes? And the only way I can think of them doing it based on the pacing of episode 1 is they're going to go very, very slowly.
Or that one policewoman has told nobody the newspaper article that she found. She's going to go to Camp Redwood by herself, not tell anybody where she's going, leave all her, I was going to say mobile phone, we're in the 80s.
They had mobile phones in the 80s. They were just,
fucking huge.
Yeah.
She's going to go to Camp Redwood. She will die, and then nobody will know. That's the only way they can sustain it, because she will go there. She will take them away, and that will be the end of Camp Redwood, because that's what any sane police officer would do. She'd shut it down. There is a serial killer coming. End of season in episode 2. So yeah, let's see how they prolong it beyond that.
Should we move on to Preacher?
Yeah, let's talk about Preacher.
This season has gotten very weird. I think last season season 3 was really good. I really enjoyed season 3. And then, I don't know, we have Tulip running around with Jesus, Cassidy's hanging out with an angel and a demon who are fucking like crazy, Jesse's wandering through the Australian outback with the Saint of Killers, Eugene actually shoots Jesse, which I didn't see coming. Well, I did see coming, but it doesn't feel in keeping with the character.
The thing I liked about season 3 was that it was split into 2 definitive sections. They had aims, they had goals, they achieved them. That was the end of the season, putting storytelling in its most basic form. This feels like entirely aimless to me. They're kind of wandering around. It has no defined terms, no meaningful conflict. One episode he's beating up paedophiles. Next episode, Tulip's beating up random Grail agents. Cassie's got the mob guy to deal with. The end game here is literally the apocalypse. And 5 episodes in, they're literally on the other side of the world from each other. I just don't know why they're not all together trying to stop the end of the world. It seems like we're halfway through the season, and yeah, it's all very aimless. Nobody's any closer to doing anything. I don't believe there's been, and I'm not talking about just season 4, I'm talking about from season 1 to 4. I don't know if I can really recognise any character growth in any of them except Cassidy's romantic feelings. He seems to have matured in that respect. Jesse's still doing what he's doing. He's turned more evil. That's his character development. I don't really see any character development for Tulip. She still does her badassery 1 episode out of 5 on average for the whole show. Next week will be the last time I ever watch Preacher. I will never rewatch this show ever. Season 3 was a strong season, but this is just very difficult to watch because I don't root for any of them, if I'm being completely honest. Even God in the show is a total son of a bitch. Jesse's now full-on villain. I don't know whether he's going to prevent the apocalypse or cause the apocalypse.
Is he really a full-on villain?
I don't see anything that he's doing that's kind of for the benefit of anybody other than himself.
Well, at the moment he's on the run from the Saint of Killers.
Yeah.
And that's kind of his thing.
Yeah,
and
I kind of want the Saint of Killers to kill him and send him to hell, and that'd be the end of the show, to be honest. I've more kind of understanding of the Saint of Killers. The Saint of Killers has always had like a goal. He's always kind of stuck to it. And at this point, I'd rather he fulfilled his goal, because I don't care for Jesse at all. This show does literally nothing for me. And that is the end of my rant. I yield the rest of my time to you.
I still enjoy Preacher. I'm very much like Team Cassidy and Tulip. I like their adventures together. I like their characters. I wouldn't classify Jesse as a full-on villain. He's self-centered and really just out for himself. But I don't know that necessarily makes him a villain. He kind of tries to do good things every now and then. It usually blows up in his face. He strikes me as a character who has a difficult time breaking bad habits. You know, like when he decided that he was going to be good because he made a promise to his father, but he was kind of a half-assed preacher, and he only sort of got worse after that. You know, he fought, he drank, he stole things. He was not what you would expect from a man of God. So it seems like he just has really poor decision-making skills, and he can't help himself. He always opts for the easy way rather than the hard way. And it may take 50 easy ways for him to realize that the easy way is not actually that easy. He has to go the hard way. That's kind of the frustrating thing about his character. I love Cassidy. I think he's great. He's absolutely hilarious. He gets up to crazy shit. Tulip just kicks ass. I love her. I love seeing her kick people's ass. And every time she does something, I'm just like, yeah, I can totally see her doing it.
Cassidy has been confined to a room again. You know, obviously he's having these multiple circumcisions and regenerating because that's a vampire power. But he, again, has had his wings clipped. I really love the Children of Blood storyline in Season 3. Might have even been my favourite part of the whole season, or the whole show in general. Why, then, is he now back in a fucking room? I couldn't tell you.
And Jesse tries to break him out, and Cassidy says no. It's like, why?
Makes no
sense. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Because Cassidy just goes back to being circumcised repeatedly. And okay, he and Jesse are pissed off at each other.
Team anti-apocalypse should be working together, you think?
At the very least, the choice to not be repeatedly circumcised should take precedence over, I'm pissed off at my best friend right now. I mean, if I were in Cassidy's position, I wouldn't Hitler could show up and be like, hey, I'm breaking you out of this. And I'd be like, all right, I'm coming with you.
Yeah.
And then, later I could be like, fuck you and whatever. But I wouldn't care who was breaking me out. It was just the fact that somebody was breaking me out. I'd be like, yeah, I'm going. I'm out of here.
So we've had 38 episodes so far. The thing about Tulip is, in that entire time, she's very capably and very successfully kicked ass in a kind of set-piece, scene-stealing, episode-stealing way 6 times, 7 times. Maybe, I'll be generous, let's say 8 times. That's her thing, though, kicking ass and being really street smart and kind of wily. And Jesse says, I've seen her, start a car without keys, hot wiring it 1 million times. Obviously, he sets the alarm off. She's really amazing at that kind of thing. And yet, this season, there's none of it. If Tulip's this amazing badass, give me more. If Cassidy's a vampire, great, give me more. All we get is Preacher walking about, beats up some paedophiles, okay, great. It's just all aimless and so very dull, and I'm absolutely at my kind of limit with it. I have a question for you. I think 3 episodes into this season, suddenly Cassidy has blonde hair. Was Season 3 meant to be 13 or 14 episodes? And so Season 4, Episode 4 or 5, I can't remember which one, of Season 4 is actually the beginning of Season 4.
It feels that way.
Meaning 7 episodes to cram in everything means this is going to be incredibly Game of Thrones level rushed towards the end of the season.
It feels like the first 3 episodes are one thing, and then it starts anew. And even the beginning of that episode is kind of like a filling us in of, because you have Tulip and Cassidy meet up and swap their stories about what they've been up to in the interim. And there's the weird blonde hair which I don't understand.
She says, "Why do you have blonde hair?" And he's like, "Oh, don't you start," or something like
Yeah.
that. Like minutes after we've seen him with dark hair, I
Yeah.
can only think it's that's where this season's meant to start. They might have thought, oh, season 2, yeah, like really good. Yeah, season 2, 13 episodes, great. Yeah, season 3 will definitely have 13 episodes. And then AMC or whoever does it in America is just like, sorry, not happening. And now they've just got this 7 episodes to kind of rectify the whole show.
Yeah.
I have little to no faith that it's going to not feel rushed or kind of just awkwardly jammed in and very kind of, yeah, and that's it, the end.
I'm kind of happy to just go along for the ride and see what happens. I mean, they do underutilize Cassidy and Tulip. There's some great characters that they just don't make enough of. And kind of in the same vein, introducing Jesus into the mix for really no particular reason.
Why do they need Humperdoo if they have Jesus?
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. They're talking about the Messiah and Humperdoo, and then it turns out that Jesus has been around all along. Isn't he supposed to be the Messiah? What does he actually do? He just kind of follows Tulip around for a minute and plays arcade games.
Yeah. I mean, did you assume, like me, that Jesus died, his son died, his son's sons died,
Yeah.
all the way up to Humperdoo?
That was what I thought, that they'd done like this huge inbreeding things, and it doesn't seem to be the case. And apparently Humperdoo is God's favorite.
And Jesus has never met Humperdoo.
That conversation between like Tulip and Jesus, where Jesus is going on about like and like God, he's just perfect, and she's like, Humperdoo?
Yeah.
Have you met Humperdoo?
Yeah.
I don't know what else we could say about it. Like it's not the best show out there. I find it entertaining. I kind of pretend that Jesse isn't part of the story, and that's how I cope with the show. I watch it for Cassidy and Tulip, and
Yeah. I mean, even when they were separated by continents, they still feel like they're kind of in his orbit, like still always talking about him, still trying to figure out
they were
where
gonna
he's
go
and
off to
stuff.
Vegas and have a good time,
Yeah.
and then it's like, no, we have to go save Jesse.
Yeah.
It's like they're always saving Jesse. Like at some point, they need to realize that they don't need Jesse. Jesse needs them.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I think the first scene you mentioned it was blonde Cassidy and Tulip sat on a bed together, like as if they were going to get together or something. I'm hoping that's kind of the end of the show and Preacher dies, and it'll at least be nice to know that can get some happiness. Hitler, why is he still in the show? Eugene, why is he still in the show? Set of Killers, we understand he's got his vendetta with Jesse, trying to bring him to hell. They get a lot of time. It feels like Hitler should have just been left in season 2, but now he's being, well, people quite like him. What should we do with him? Oh, let's make him the new like envoy to hell or something. It feels very kind of tacked on.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a particularly interesting adaptation of Hitler. Aside from the name, the character could be anybody.
Yeah.
You know, just any random German person with mildly offensive views on Jewish people.
High points?
So far, none.
I have 2. Or rather, I have the same thing twice as my high point. I like that Featherstone, or Flufferman, as her star calls her, escaped twice in a wingsuit. I'm hoping that gag comes back a third time. The first time she was fighting Tulip on like a mountaintop. Tulip thought she'd thrown her to her death and just this turning into a wingsuit. And then the other time when she says to her star, you know, I've earned the right for you to assassinate me because of how bad I am, and knew Hoover, I can't remember his actual name.
That's his name.
Is that his name?
No,
Yeah.
it's Hoover 2.
Hoover 2, yeah. And he's like, well, I'll do it. And she's like, no, you're a nobody to me. I want a star to execute me. And then she jumps out the window, and again, the wingsuit comes out. The Grail humour, as I've said before, is absolutely perfect. It's pitch perfect. And I could watch a whole show of, like The Office, but with Grail, like a weird dysfunctional team of people working together. I would love that.
It would actually be a really interesting premise to have. I mean, because the Grail is hilarious, and all of the actors doing it do a wonderful job of appearing like very serious and very committed to their roles in the organization, and they say like the most ludicrous things, completely deadpan and completely believable. And I mean, the whole concept of Humperdoo and negotiating a conference for the apocalypse and just, you know, that kind of thing, it would be a really funny show. I would watch a spin-off of the Grail.
Hair Star asking Hoover 2 am I beautiful or am I pretty?
Yeah.
And then he's so blunt, he's like, no, like not at all. But then later he refers to him as sitting pretty, and Hester kind of gets quite excited by that. But at this point he's lost an ear, he's lost an eye, he's got a line carved into the top of his head. I feel like he's probably going to suffer again at some point, some of the kind of disfigurement. The Grail, probably my favourite part of the entire show, I would say.
It's probably my second favorite. So I think that's about it for this week. You can maybe find us on Twitter
It's possible.
at Geek Nerd Pod. We're also on Facebook /The Geekly and Patreon.com/Geek Nerd Pod. Plus our website, which always works even when other social media doesn't, geeknerdpod.com.
We'll be putting out our best of 2018-2019 bonus episode this Saturday, so look for that. And if you're interested in following us on Patreon, we just put up our extended interview with our very own Leks Dracos. Pretty cool.
And apparently we've gotten some good feedback from our patrons about it, so it's an interesting episode to listen to. So go check it out.
I think we might know who our second and possibly third interview might be.
I'm gonna be really excited about that.
Yeah. Should we keep it a secret?
Yeah, we'll keep it a secret until the details have been finalized. But it is a very cool couple of guys.
Yeah, I think it would be 2 and 3 rather than like a combined 2.
Yeah,
I think, yeah.
It'd be better doing 2 separate interviews.
Absolutely, yeah. That's all.
Yeah, that's
See
it.
you next week.
See ya.